Alright, so welcome back. This is the 5th episode of our tutorial. So in today's video, we are going to cover about how we are going to create the dashboard for this expense tracking application. But before we do that, let's update some of the things. For example, for this text that you see here, so we need to update that one. So let's do that. And also we are going to update the title for these pages that the user can visit. So you can see now it says just the expense app on all of these pages. So we need to update that. So Livewire gives you the ability to do that. So let's start with the first thing, which was to update the name that is shown, the name of the application. So let's see. So let's see on the layout. Okay, basically on our sidebar, so we can check it from sidebar. No, not this one. Choose sidebar. Okay, yeah. So this is the app logo. So this is the logo that is shown there. So let's open it inside, and you see here is where you see the name of our application. Okay, which is this one. So here I'm just going to change it, and it is going to use the configuration name. Then I'm going to use the app, then name. Okay, so means the name that we are going to set in a .env file will be the same name that will be used here. So for example, if here we have set the name to be this one, so basically we should be able to see that name reflected here. Yeah, so here you see now the name is saying to be expense app, but also we can be able to update this icon or a logo. So we can just change that one if you want. So it's this one. So you can see this is the logo. So you can go inside this one, and you can see this is a app logo icon.php, which is found inside the components. So you can just update this SVG. So to simplify that, I can show you how to use a logo IPSA. So we can go to the logo IPSA. So here you will find the mocking logos like this one. So these are the logo placeholders. So for example, I can just use any of these. So let me just try to see which one will be good. So let me try this one. I guess it will look fine. So I'll just click this one, and it will copy that logo, or I can just use this one. Okay, yeah, let me just use this one, and after that I'm going to replace with this one. Okay, so after that, now this should be the new logo. So let's go to the application. Yeah, and here you can see the logo has been updated. Okay, so now you will see that here there is this styling of the logo. So you can see it has the text white, and on dark mode the text should be black. So that will control the coloration of our logo. Okay, so for now this works fine. So now the next step is to update the title. For example, for categories, so here we should be able to show that title for the categories. So let me close these files. Let's go to the categories component on Livewire categories, and here we can use this attribute. So we can use the title attribute, which is this one, and then we are going to say expense. We can just say categories, then you can say expense app. Okay, so this sounds well. So we are going to do the same thing for budget listing. So just import this one. Okay, the same thing to all of the other pages, but we have to update this one, so it should be budgets. Okay, and we have budget form. Import this one. So this is create, or I can just say still should be budgets. Okay, and then we have the expense form. And then we have the expense this expenses. So this sounds good. And now we have the recurring, and here we can call it recurring expenses. Okay, so that's good. Now let's go back to the application, and now you see, so we have the categories, dash expense app. So if we go to budgets, now you should be able to see the budgets, then expense app. If you go to expenses, you should be able to see that. On recurring, then you will see recurring dash expenses. Okay, so this is actually working fine. So now it is time to start to work on our dashboard. So let me start to build the dashboard. So I'll create the new component, and then I'll replace the current dashboard logic. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just say PHP @sun make, then Livewire, then I'll create the component called the dashboard. Okay, so this will create two files, the component class and the blade file. So on those two, we are going to update them accordingly. Okay, so you can see here we have this component class and we have this one blade file. So let's start to update this component class. Okay, so let's visit it, and now here we're going to define the following things. But before we start to update anything here, let's go and register it to the web.php, which is right here. So instead of this returning this bloody view, which is this one, so this you can see this was a placeholder, which is the one that you currently see it here. So this is a placeholder. So we want to replace that. So instead of returning this dashboard view, so I'm going to update this one. Instead of returning the view, it should return the Livewire full page component. So we're going to return, just still call it dashboard, and then we are going to return the dashboard component, which is the Livewire component. Okay, and then we have already the name, so we are not going to update that, so it will be this way. Okay, so make sure that you've imported this component, which is this one. Okay, so now this should work fine. So now if I go back to the application, you see now the placeholders have been gone. So now anything that will print here, it should be able to be shown on this dashboard page. Okay, so now let me go back to this component and let me start to update the following things. So the first step will be to define the public key properties that you're going to use. So the first one will be the selected month for controlling the data that we see. So control the selected month, we have that, we have the selected year, and then we have the public, let's say total amount spent. So total spent, let's say. We have the monthly budget. So monthly budget, okay, which should be a variable, public variable, let's say monthly budget. Okay, we have the percentage used, we have the expense by category, expense category, and we have recent expenses. We have the monthly comparison, and each of these properties I'm going to show you their usage. Then we have the top categories, then we have the recurring expense count, okay, and after that now we have every public property that we need to use into our dashboard, okay. So this will help us to show the required data as expected. So after that we need to have the mount method, and on this mount method we need to define the selected month. So we want to initialize these values by using the mount function. So here we're going to use the now instance, okay, and then we are going to get the month, okay, from the now instance, which is a carbon instance of the current time. And after that let's close it by getting the year, and then we can close it like this way, okay. But after that we need to have a way to show the data or to show the data for this dashboard, okay. So we need to get the data for recent expenses and everything that you see from here, okay. So before we do that, I want to define that method here, which we are going to use to get this data. So I'm going to define a method which will be load dashboard data, okay. And after that, that method will be called here when you initialize the values. So it should be this, then load dashboard data, okay, like that way. And after that, let's now define the following details. But before that, we can have these lifecycle hooks, which will help us to track the changes on our data when you, let's say you update these two properties. So because if you remember on the demo I showed you a way that you can be able to switch between the months of a certain year. So when you do the changes on a month, so we should be able to reload it or to refresh the data, okay. So to do so means we need to have a lifecycle hook which will be updated. So here we're going to use this lifecycle hook called the updated. Then you have to give the name of the property, which is selected month, which is this one, okay. And then after that, here we need to call this, then load dashboard data, and after that we can close it. So similar way to when the user changes the year, okay. So selected the year, okay. So now these two will help us when the user updated any of these details, then we are going to refresh these details. So now here, now let's work on the logic behind loading the data, okay. So the first thing will be to get the ID of the logged in user so that we can be able to identify the expenses basing on the logged in user, to identify the budget, and then to identify any data that is related to this user. So let's get the user ID. So that will be coming from auth. So I'll import the facade one, and then I'll get the ID of the logged in user. Okay, so after that, now we are going to get the total amount spent for the particular month that we are currently in. So here we have the total spent amount, so it should be for the current month. Okay, so here we're going to say total amount spent in a month. Okay, so what we're going to do is to assign that value to spent total spent, let's say, and then this should be get from expense, which is our model. Then we are going to get the expense for the user, so we are going to use for user, which this one is a local scope that we have already defined. So let me import this one first. Okay, so then after that, you see, so this is a scope which you have already defined it, so it will get the expense where the user ID equals to the ID that you will pass it on here. Okay, so here we're going to pass the user ID, so user ID, and then after that we need to get the expense in a month. Okay, so this method already we've defined it here as a scope, so you see, so it will get where the month is equal to the month that you pass, also the year equals to the year that you pass it here. So here it requires to pass two details, which already we have defined them here, so we're just going to use them down here. So we're going to pass the selected month and the selected year. Okay, so after that, now we have to get the sum of the amount. Okay, so now we have the amount spent in a month. Okay, so now if you can dump that data, so you can just say this, then total spent. Okay, and after that, if you go to the browser, yep, so you can see here we have the total amount spent for this month, which is $350. Okay, so that was the amount spent on the particular month. Okay, so now let's continue with what we are doing. So after that, now the next thing is to get the monthly budget that we were budgeting for this particular month. So monthly budget, you'll get it from, let's say, budget. So this should be from budget. Okay, so from the model, and then we're going to say where the user ID equals to the user ID that we've defined up here, and then after that we need to get the budget where the month, okay, where the month, because we have that field on budget, so here we have the month and the year. Okay, so where the month equals to the selected month, and for the year equals to the selected year, and then after that we need to get the first value that we will find for that particular month and year. Okay, because we cannot have more than one value on a certain month. Okay, so after that, now we need to have a way to to get the monthly budget now, because this was the budget for that single month. So we need to get a way to if it happens this does not return anything, okay, so we can be able to, let's say, to return 0 for that case. So here we need to assign this to monthly budget. So monthly budget should be equals to the budget, okay, but if it happens the budget is there, okay, means it is not null, so we can say budget, then we can get the amount, okay, which is the field that we have on budget model. And then if it happens that this is null, so this will be the else side. So this acts as like if else, okay, so it will act as if else. So if this is not null, so it will show the amount, but if it is null, so it will return 0 instead of null, okay. So after that you can also get the percentage used, so like percentage used. So to get the percentage used, so we can just say percentage used can be retrieved from this way. So for example, I can do the following. So I can just say this, then monthly budget, okay, if it is greater than 0, okay. So if it is greater than 0, what I can do, just do the following. So I can say, say I want to do the rounding of the spent amount total spent, then divided by 100, okay, divided by the monthly budget, which is this one, and then after that we can multiply it by 100. But when we are getting the decimal places, I want to make it only 1, okay, and basically that is the precision, not the decimal places, that is the precision, okay. So the precision of 1, okay. So after that we can be able to terminate this one, but here we need to have a where, like an else for this. So if it happens it is not greater than 0, so it should return 0, okay, like that way. You can just put it here for clarity, okay. Yeah, so now means to get the percentage used, so you just need to divide the amount that has been spent from that budget, and then we can multiply it by 100, okay. So this rounding is just to return the float, which you can have like a precision of number of, let's say, of zeros, okay. So that's good. Now we can be able to show that percentage used. So for example, here you can just dump that value if you want to see. So percentage used, okay. So now if you go to the view and refresh, now you see, so the percentage used is 23.3 percentage, okay. So for now this is works fine, okay. So let's remove that, and now let's continue with other thing that we need to have. So we need also to get the expense by category. So expense by category, so like we want to get the separation of concerns, like in this category we spent this amount, on this category we spent this amount, okay. So here we're going to say this, then expense by category, so this will be from expense, okay, which is our model, and then we need to specify the fields that we need to select. So the first field will be the field from category table. Okay, so this is a relationship because we already have this category relationship here, which is this one. So we want to get the name from this category table. Okay, so here is where we define that, and then from category again we need to get we need to say category, then we need to get the color of that category. Okay, so after that we have those two values from the relationship. Now we want to get the sum of the amount of expenses which are related to these categories. So what we are going to do here, we are going to use an old way to get these values here. So I'm going to show you how we're going to use this. So we're going to use this db facade, like this one. Okay, so let me first import this one. So let me import this facade, and then here I'm going to write a raw SQL command. Okay, so here I'm just going to say sum. Okay, and then I'm going to get the sum of expenses dot amount. Okay, which means this amount is found on expenses table here, which is this one. Okay, after that we want to identify this as total. Okay, like this way, and then after that down here we are going to have a join for this query. So we're going to do the join. Okay, and then we're going to join the following tables. So we're going to say categories, then here you have to provide the value that is found on the expenses, then category ID, and then it should be equal to the categories ID. Okay, so means this will be the categories table, then the ID that is found on expenses should be referenced from the ID of the corresponding table. Okay, so this is actually a way of writing joins in Laravel. So if you don't know about anything about this one, so you can just visit the page where the Laravel documentation explains more about this way of writing the raw queries, and by using this facade which is called db. So this actually will give you these explanations about how you can write the joins in Laravel. Okay, and then after that we need to have a where condition here, like to trim down these values. So we are going to say all the expenses that we get from here. Okay, the expenses that we get should be basing on the user ID of the logged in user. Okay, so user then ID. Okay, so here we trim the expenses that we retrieve from here, and then we trim them to be basing on the user that has logged in, and then after that we want to trim them to the current month. Okay, so we're going to say the month should be expenses dot date, means we are accessing the date from the expense, and then it should be equals to the selected month from up here, which is this one. Okay, and then after that now we have to get the where the year. So this should be selected year, and from here it should be where year, not where month again. So after that we have trimmed that details, then we can group by the following fields. So we can say categories, then ID. Okay, then categories name, then categories color. Okay, so these are the fields that will be used to categorize these expenses. So based on the IDs, categories, names, and colors. Okay, and then after that we can call the order by, and then from order by we can order them by total amount. Okay, then we can say it should be in a descending. Okay, in descending order. So this should be here. Okay, and then after that we can call get method like this way. Okay, so now we have these values, so we can just dump them and check what we have. So this should be expense by category. Okay, now let's go back to the view and check what we have. Okay, so here it says column not found, category.name field is not found on this. Okay, now let's see where we missed that one. Category.name, we accessed it here. Yeah, this should be, oh wow, this should be categories, because here we are passing the raw SQL, so we need to say this should be categories, not just category. So it should be categories like this way. Okay, and then after that I guess everything will work fine. Now let's go back here. Yep, so now we have the following details. So you see we have the category called the education, the color, and the total amount spent for that category. Okay, so now means this is working fine. So let's remove that and let's get the recent expenses. Okay, so let's do this quickly. So recent expenses, this should be coming from expense, then with the relationship of category, and then after that we can call for the logged in user, then you need to pass the user ID, then we can call this for the month, so here it should be date. Similar things for the selected year. Okay, and then after that, then we need to order these details. So order by, then we are going to order by date, then we are going to do that in descending, then we are going to get the details, but before that you can also order by the date they were created. Okay, so by using the created at field, then by default we are going to take only 5 details at a time. Okay, so this will help to reduce the query execution time. Okay, and then after that we have the recent expenses. So now the next step is to get the monthly comparison. Okay, because that is the one that is not done yet, so we need to get the monthly comparison. So let's do that. Here we are going to do monthly comparison, which should be will be found from So we can just call the collect here. So we define the instance of collection, and then what we can do, we can just do the for loop, okay, or like a for loop like this one, and then here we're just going to have the following thing. So on 5 values that we are going to have, and is when it will be greater than or equals to 0, okay, then here we are going to decrement, okay, instead of incrementing, and then after that we are going to do the following. So we are going to get the date, then we get the instance of carbon, then we are going to create, then from this, then selected year, then selected month, okay, and then for day we're going to pass 1, then we're going to say sub months, okay, and here we're going to sub month for the instance of this I, okay, so it will get the state of this I mean of this loop, because it will be checking for the previous 5 months. So this one will be the instance. So like when it is on the first month, so it will sub month for that amount here, okay, and after that let me terminate that, and then here we need to get to the expense or the total, then it should be expense, okay, and then we can get for the user, then pass the user ID, then we are going to get the in month, so here we're going to pass the date that we get there, and then month, then year, okay. After that you need to get the sum of the amount from this query, okay. After that, now this is fine. Now down here we need to have a way to push these values into our collection, okay. So what we are going to do is to say this, then monthly comparison, it is going to use the push method, okay, and then here we're going to do the following. So for the month, okay, it should be the date, then we're going to format it to just month, okay, and then we're going to have the total, which should be corresponding to the total amount, okay. So this total will be this one, and from the date we will get that from there, okay. And then after that, now this is done, so means we are going to get the monthly comparison between the previous 5 months, and then after that we are going to have the top categories, okay. So what we can do, we can just do the following. So we can just get the, let's say 3 top categories. So we can say top categories, this should be this, then expense by category, then instead of getting all, we can just take only 3 of them, okay. And then for the recurring expenses, we can just do the following. So recurring expenses. So we can just do the following. This, then recurring expenses count should be from expense, and then for user, then we're going to pass the user ID, and then after that we are going to get the recurring expenses, and then we're going to count, okay, like this way. So now already we have all the necessary details that we need from here. So you can see all of these now are done. So now we need to get a way to get the next and previous months, is we have that functionality here on, like on budgets. I believe we have that functionality like this one, you see. So what we're going to do is just to copy paste this functionality, because it doesn't change on anything. So let's update that here. So I'm just going to paste it here. Let me squeeze it a little bit here, okay. And now you can see we have the selected year and month, and we have the instance of those dates, okay. So now this will work as we expected. So now it is time to update our view side. So on our view side here, now currently here you will not see anything because we didn't push anything on our view, okay. And you can see the view will be currently blank. Okay, so now let's update this view. So what we're going to have here, so let me remove this text, and from here, this is where the header should be. So here we're going to have this styling. So this will be the outer styling. So we are going to have this background, but we need to adapt it to dark mode. So on dark mode, the background can be like of neutral of let's say 900, okay. So when you will be in the dark mode, this should adapt. So now we are on light mode, that's why you see this gray, okay, background. But when you will be on dark mode, you will see that you're adapting to this neutral, okay. And then after that, we are going to have the header section. So on header section, we're just going to have the following thing. So we're going to have the header, which will be having this background of gradient, which will be from purple to indigo, okay. So you can just change that on your own. So let's say if you want to change this one, let's say from green, let's say to something like yeah, you can leave that one, but you can change if you want. And then we are going to have this div, which will wrap these details, where we are going to have the items. So in these items, we are going to have the first item, which will be this div, which contains the name of the page, which is dashboard. Then here we're going to show the name of the logged in user, and then after that we're going to have this another div which contains two items. So the first one will be the button for previous month. So when the user click this one, it should activate this method, which is we'll call this one, and then we are going to submonth one month from the current date, okay. And then when the user click the second one, this should be on the next month. But if they are on the middle here, they're going to show the current date and the current month and the year, okay. So we're going to format it to be shown as the year and the month, okay. So now if we go to the view, so this is what will be the product. So you can see here it says dashboard. So welcome back, then the name of the logged in user. So you can check that from here. So the name of the logged in user is this one. And after that, we have the two buttons that will help you to navigate to the previous month and to the next month. And here on the middle you will see the formatted date, so it will be the full name of the month and the current year. Okay, so if you go back here, you see, so we are on October, and if you go forward, you see now we're on November, you can go to December and something like that. Okay, so this works fine because we've already tested that on other features. So now let's go to the next session. So down here, so the div for header ends here. So down here we are going to have another div. Okay, so we're going to have another div here. So let's say, let me use this way. Okay, so this div now will act as a main content div, and then inside it we're going to put the start card in a grid. So let me have the grid here. So this will be the grid of our cards. So here is where the cards will be shown here. Okay, after that, now inside that, let's start with the card for showing the total spent card. So let me have it here. Okay, so this will be the one for total spent amount. So you can see the border, you can see the background, you can see that it will show the amount of total spent amount here, which will be formatted, and you can see the currency now it is on $1, but you can update that one, let's say, to be dynamic, so you can be able to update that from the system. Okay, so after that, here we have a way to show monthly budget. So you can see here there is a way to say if the budget is over or under the monthly budgeted amount. So we are going to see that in action. So if you go back here, now you should be able to see this thing. So see, so the text is this one, total spent amount. You can see the $sign or the icon for this card, and then you can see the total spent amount is this one, but here we're going to show if the amount spent is above or under the budgeted amount for that particular month. Okay, so for now we are still under the budget. Okay, so now let's go to the next card. Okay, so this is the first card, so you can see the code up to here. See, so that was the first card. Now let's go to the second card, which will be for budget. Okay, so for the budget, now the card is from here to here. So now let's paste that. Okay, so this is for the budget card. Similar things, like you can see the percentage used already, we've defined that. So you can see those details already, we have defined them on here. Okay, so now let's go to the view, and you should be able to see that thing here. So you can see the monthly budget that we have defined, the percentage used, and the amount left. Okay, so if you take this one minus this one, you should be able to get this one. Okay, so now that works fine. Now let's go to the next card. So the next card will be the categories card. So here we're going to paste the following. So categories card, so it should be this one, and you can see here it is going to show the expense by category count, and it will show the active spending categories. Okay, so okay, and define the expenses by category. Expenses by category, let's see what we have here. Expenses by category, expense, yeah, so this is expense, not expenses. Yep, so now that's fine. If we refresh our page, now we should be able to see the active spending category. Okay, so now means on category here, you should be able to see that the active expenses are in education, but this one does not have any expense, so that's why you see it shows only for the education category only here. Okay, and then after that let's go to the recurring card, where we're going to see the number of recurring details. So let me just use this card here. So this recurring expenses count, already we've defined that. So let's go back here. Recurring expenses, let's check it from here. We've already defined this one. It is expense, not expenses, like that way. And then you refresh. Yep, see, so now we have the one active subscription on here, recurring expenses. Okay, so after that, now I want to add two things down here. So the first thing will be to add the chart for showing the 6 months spending trend, and then we are going to have the spending by category. So those will be the two charts. But after that, we are going to show the top categories and the recent expenses. So what I'm going to do here is just to start by showing the two grids for top categories and the recent expenses. Then on top of them, I'll show you how to add the chart.js for those two things. So for now, let me just show you these two cards for top categories and recent expenses. So let me do the following. So down here, where this grid ends, down here, so here is where I'm going to have the following two things. Okay, so what I'm having here is the top categories and recent expenses, and from here you can see I have the grid, and you can see this is the styling for grid. So we are going to have one column, then on large screen you are going to have two columns, and then we have the gap of 6. Okay, and then after that we have the first grid, which will have the top categories, where we are going to get the top spending categories. So already we've defined these details from here. So like the top categories, how you're going to get them, and everything that you need to have. Okay, so you can see that here we have the category color. So you can see the category color will be acting as a background color for that particular category. And then after that, we are going to have the name of the category. Then here we're going to have the percentage used for that particular category. So you just need to take the total, then divide the total spent amount, and this is the total from the category. Basically, that is what we defined here. Okay, so you are going to have that total here, and then after that, that amount will be here, and then you are going to use it here. Okay, so after that, you're going to get all the recent top categories expenses. Okay, and then after that, we're going to get the recent expenses. So you can see here is a way that you can be able to see the expenses. But if you want to see all of the expenses, this will be the link to redirect you to the expenses page. Okay, and after that, the recent expenses, we're going to loop through them, and after that we will show the details like the color, the title, the date, the amount. Okay, and we are going to show the badge if this was auto-generated, because we are going to track if this was auto-generated by using the command that we scheduled yesterday on our previous section, if you remember. So we have this one, which was scheduling, but for now I'll just remove it, just to make it to run daily. Then you can just say from, let's say, on middle of the night. Okay, like this way. Okay, so that's what we have. So if it was auto-generated, so this one will be added automatically, but if it was not auto-generated, you will not see that. And on empty, if it happens that we don't have anything on the recent expenses, so we're going to show this message here. So now if we go back here, you should be able to see that the top spending categories, you can see the name of the category, the background that you have seen here. So you can see the percentage of the total from this particular category, and then the amount that we have spent. You can see here we have another card for recent expenses. Here is where you're going to be directed to the expenses. So if you click that, you should be directed to the expenses page, which is this one. But if I go back, now we should be directed back to the dashboard. And here you can see that we have this Netflix subscription, which was the last thing that we did. And you can see it was auto-generated. And then we have the random expense that we did for $200. Then we have this one for buying books, okay, which we did for this particular category, okay. So that was for these two things. But before I forgot, let's down here I'm going to add the quick actions, which will help you to navigate through the system, okay. So for the quick actions, I'm going to add the following things. So down here below that grid that we added, so I'm going to add these three quick actions. So the first one will be for adding expense, the next one will be for managing the recurring subscription or expenses, and then we're going to have the categories so that you can be able to organize your categories. So this is nothing new here, it's just the link with the hyperlink that you see there, the styling you see. So we have the icon here, and then we have the text for add expense, then the simple description. So it will be similar things to other 3 or 2 actions. So if you now go back here, you should be able to see something like this, okay. Yeah, so this will be the quick actions. So for example, if you want to add a new expense, so you can just click that and it will direct you to the expense form, okay. So you see, so this is just for simplicity of navigating through the system. So if you go back to the dashboard again, then you can manage the recurring expenses from here. So it will direct you to this page. If I go back, see, so I can manage the categories from here, and you can see everything is working as we expected, okay. So the last thing that we need to do here is to show the actually the charts here, okay. So to do the charts here, let's do the following. So I've said that I'm going to add them below the stats card and above the top categories and the recent expenses. So means here is where we are going to have those charts, okay. So on charts, what we're going to have, the following grid, okay. So we're going to have that grid here. So means inside this section, so we're going to have the charts here, okay. So on charts, what we are going to do here, I'm going to write this step by step so that you can understand what I'm doing. So for the monthly trend chart, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have a simple div, okay, with the following styling. So I'm going to say the background of this should be white, then it should be rounded. So I'm creating a simple card, and then it should be rounded in a extra large size, and then we're going to have the shadow of medium, so shadow medium, and then after that we're going to have the padding of 6. I guess that is fine. And then after that we're going to have the heading 3, and then on this one is where we're going to say, let's say this is for this month like 6-month spending trend. Okay, so you can see that from here, 6-month trending. So if I refresh, yep, and I can have the same thing down here. So this one should be for spending by category. See, so now I have 2 cards here. Okay, and after that, now on the first card, let's define the canvas where we are going to use to show the chat.js actually. So I'm going to use the chat.js library to show this monthly trend chart. Okay, and similar way we are going to use the same thing here. Okay, but this one will change to category chart. Okay, so these are the different IDs that I'm going to use them in my JavaScript to reference to these 2 canvas. Okay, so let me a little bit style these headings so that we can have something great. So the text should be large. Okay, and then the font can be semi-bold. Okay, and then for the text, I can just say it should be of gray of let's say 800, and then we're going to have the margin bottom of let's say 4, and then now we should be able to see something like this one. Okay, so you can see the difference. So you can just reuse that styling. So you can just copy that style and use it here. Okay, so now this should be in a similar way. Okay, so now here you can see the gap is right here. So here is where we are going to show those 2 charts. Okay, so to show those 2 charts now means we need to have integration to chat.js. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the chat.js site. So you can use this chat.js, or you can use any library that you feel works well with you. So I'll just go to the get started, and then on installation. So you can use this way to install the chat.js, and you can use this deliver, so JS deliver, or you can use the CDN. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use any of these 2. So I'm just going to use this one. Okay, so let me copy the address, and then I'm going to add it below this div. So let me just do the following. So basically, because this one is not styled, so let me just use this way. Okay, so you can see this does not show the version, but basically I guess that version is shown here. So you can see the version, it is like 4.51. So there is a little bit difference here. So this is 4.4. So you can use the one from the latest version here, but I'll just use this one. Okay, and then after that, down here, I want to define the script tag, and inside the script tag, I'm just going to do the following. So I'm just going to access the document, then I'm going to add the following event listener. Okay, and then the event that I'm going to use is Livewire, then navigated. Okay, why I'm using this event is because if we don't use that, I'll show you the thing that will be happening, and then you will understand why I use this concept. So I'll just finish with this one, then I'll show you that. Okay, so here for the monthly trend chart, Okay, so what we are going to do is to define a constant, let's say trend, then x, okay, and then we're going to have the following. So we're going to access the canvas that we defined above there, and then we're going to say get element by id, and then we're going to define the id that we have defined here, which is this one. Okay, so after that, let me paste it there, and then we're going to say get context. Okay, then we are going to say the 2 dimension. Okay, like this way. Okay, and then after that, we're going to create the new instance of chat.js. So we're going to say chat, then we're going to pass this object, so trend ctx. Okay, and then after that, we're going to return this function, and then from this function here you're going to define the following things. So firstly, property or option is going to be the type of chart that you want. So the type of chart will be line, and then after that we're going to define the data for this particular chart, and then after that inside the data, so there is this labels, and from the labels you can use this JSON method to get the monthly comparison details. Okay, so monthly comparison details, and then from them we're going to plug the month, which will act as a label. Okay, and after that we are going to have the actual data. Okay, which I guess there is something that I missed here. So this is labels. Yeah, this is correct. So this will be the labels. Okay, yep, so will be the labels, and then this should be data sets. Okay, and then from the data sets, here is where we're going to have this a particular array of object, which will have the following. So label, okay, and then we're going to have the label, which will be, let's say, spending, and then the data. Now the data should be we're going to use the JSON again, and then here we're going to get the monthly comparison again, but here we're going to plug the total. Okay, like that one. So now this should be a way for starting to show the details. So you can see now the labels will be the labels for the 5 months. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you can see even the value are now shown. See, so the values now are shown from this total. So it will be getting those details by checking the month and the total. So it will be plugging them from the monthly comparison value that we defined here. Okay, so after that, now we need to add the some of the things like a simple styling for our chart. So I'm just going to paste these styles so that you can be able to see, but you can change this because it's not necessary. So the border color, the background color, border width, so you can just leave them if you don't want to use them. Okay, so now I'll just leave it that way, and then you can see this is how it will look when you add those styling. Okay, so you can see here we are doing the filling. So if you don't want that fill, so you can just say false, and after that you will see that you will be removed from the chart. You can see, so that's the essence of using this fill, then it's true, and then you can be able to use the background color. Okay, And after that, now you see this works very fine. Now we have the other options for this chart, so you can add the other options. So for example, the first option that you can add, so here you can define the options. Okay, so from the option, this object will accept the following things. So the first two things that you can pass will be the responsive, so you can say to true, so means when the user change the size of their devices, so the chart should be responding to the size of the page actually, and then after that it should maintain its aspect ratio. Okay, so by making this to true, so means they will act accordingly. And after that, we need to have the plugin that you can use, but it's not let's say important, so I'm just using them here to show you that how powerful Chat.js can be, but you can just leave them if you don't feel they fit your needs. Okay, so let me just squeeze this one. Okay, like this way, and this should be from here. Yep, so like this way. Okay, so this is plugin, and now we have another one for scales. So for scales, let me just paste it here. Okay, so here you can see on the y-axis, so you can say if it should restart from 0 or begin from 0. So here we're going to say true, and then for the ticks, you can see the callback, like this will be the value that will be shown there. Okay, so now this is how it looks like. You can see, so this will be the values on the y-axis. Okay, so that will be for making this to be dollars. Okay, so if you remove this one, means it will not add those dollars there. Okay, so it will be like this way. So if you remove that, see, so now this will not have the currency, but if you put this one, so this will be the callback function, which will help you to style these details, which are called the ticks. Okay, so now this will work just fine. Okay, so for the spending by category chart now, which we now need to make this to be a pie chart. So what we're going to do, we are going to do the following. So let me terminate that, and then here we're going to say category and then pie chart. So we are going to do the same thing that we did with the first chart. So I'm just going to paste these things, and I'm going to explain to you so that you can understand. So the first thing is to get the selector. So we have get that by using the element by ID. So the ID of that chart was this one. Okay, and then after that, then we have the context of 2 dimension, and then we created the new instance of the chart.js, and then we get the object. Then the type of the chart, it will be the doughnut, and then after that we are going to have the data as we did for this one, and then from the data we're going to have the labels and the data sets. On the labels, we're going to plug the name from the expense by category, which we have already defined here, expense by category. So this will be this one. Okay, and then after that we have the total amount, which we have it from here, which is this one. Okay, and then after that we have the color from the category, and then for the border width we have that one, and for border color will be that one. Then on the options we need to have the legend on the right side of these details. So now on our view, this will be how it looks like. So this should be expense, not expenses. Let me update this one. So all of these should be expense, like this way. Okay, and then let's go back here. Yep. So now you can see this is our donut, and you can see the way it looks like, because this is a chart. So you can see it shows that we have only one category, which is education. So now if we go on expenses and we create the new expense for, let's say, for another category, which is food and dining. So you can say on shopping, like we use $200, and then here we say buy food and other needs, let's say something like that. Okay, and then save. Yep, so now we have this expense that we've added. Now let's go to the dashboard, and yep, so now you can see, so these charts are not being shown because here this event was notified, and it was notified because the change from this page, which I was there, which is expenses, okay, going back to the dashboard, it was not triggering that. But now, because we have clicked this page, so it has just called the wire navigate. So when it triggers the wire navigate, so it will trigger the auto generation of this, or it will just recall again this generation. But if you don't do that, for example, if you just comment this one, see, so you don't have that event. So if you don't have that event, means when you will be shifting, for example, from this dashboard to categories and then going back to dashboard, then these charts will be gone. But if you allow this one, okay, like this way, so now after refreshing, they should be shown, okay. And if we navigate to categories, because you see that loading indicator means that the Livewire is navigating. So now if I go back to the dashboard, you should be able to see the expenses, okay, and these charts will be shown. But if you navigate, let's say, to a page like this form, okay, and then if you cancel it, or you just go here, so from going to this page, there is no Livewire navigation event triggering. So that's when the issue comes in, okay. So you can just update that. So for example, you can see now it is not shown, so you can just refresh that, and this will be shown automatically. So that's all for the today's video. So I guess on the next video is where we are going to finish up with the adding the AI. So we are just going to use the Google AI Studio, where we are going to use the Gemini AI, and then we are going to use this Google Gemini PHP, which will be the Laravel package, which will help us to interact with the Gemini AI APIs. Okay, so that's when we are going to finish up with our project. So see you on the next video, and thank you for watching. Bye.